G'day guys. There seems to be a bit of interest in this hard to detect nugget. I did do some measurements and I still can't find my very accurate scales, but I did use the scales every other Tom, Dick and Harry uses, which are those. And as far as I can tell, this is very close to a 0.1. And what I did, I took it out of its container, I stuck it on some masking tape, and I zoomed in with the camera, and that is what it looks like. Could have probably had a little bit more lighting on it, but I did a 10 times zoom on the camera, and yeah, it's very mottly, up and down all over the place. It's definitely not smooth at all. And I have here, where are we? There, that's it there. And I have taken another shot of the back of it, so we'll click that up. That's the back of it, and if you have a look at that, I mean, it's so mottled and all over the place. It's really got some hills and valleys in that. That is why it's very difficult to detect with a pulse induction detector. And also, it would probably diminish. I've got the tripod in front of me, between me and the computer, so it's very difficult. It also diminish the signal strength on a VLF as well, something like that. To generate the return signal with a pulse induction detector, you'd energize it, and as the transmit pulse turned off, this would generate eddy currents. You just have electric fields generated as the field collapses, and it would then generate a field which is then picked up by the coil windings. But because of those all those little dints and valleys and whatever else, it makes it extremely difficult for that poor little piece of gold to generate any eddy currents for any appreciable amount of time. That can be picked up by the coil. They just get burnt up. It's not like you can touch it, it's hot. You're talking hundreds of thousands of a degree, or maybe a millionth of a degree, but the energy does dissipate as thermal energy as it tries to whiz around, and it can only basically dissipate in the resistance of the nugget. And yeah, it just is not very good to get a return signal from that type of gold. So maybe, guys, if you zoom in on your little gold nuggets, and if they look something like that, well, you know that there's probably more gold there, and you don't want to use a pulse induction detector in that circumstance. You really want to go to using a very high frequency VLF. You can use the Gold Monster, or you could use something like Gold Cruiser, I think it's called, or my favourite one of all time was the White's Gold Master. That thing screamed on tiny gold. I could get specks out of a reef with a Gold Master detector, but that's going back a while. It's all very old analog technology. So that's that there. But I'll give you a comparison between that there, and I'll see if I get the right picture. I think that one there. I'm trying to get two up. Now, what I've done, I tried to do a side by side here. I'll just move the camera sideways so we don't get funny view areas. Now, it's interesting to note that that little one there, that's my 0.05 gram I use for testing. I actually took it off my test stick, and yeah, just did the tape and took a picture of it. So there it is there. That's a little 0.05, and that 0.05 gold nugget, if you look at it, It's relatively smooth. It's not perfectly smooth, but that gives a far better signal than that big piece of gold, or bigger piece of gold. So it's a little bit of error there, I think, in the camera placement. I don't think it's well. First of all, the 0.1's not that big. You know, well, it is, but it doesn't look that big, if you know what I mean. And the 0.05, if you look at the lines on the paper, you can see little lines. You'd need to blow the small nugget up probably double the size. I must have knocked the magnification or something, and that 0.05 is probably a little bit less than half the size of that one. We'll call it a 0.1. I think it's very close to. It's closer to 0.1 than 0.9, so we'll call it a 0.1. I mean 0.09, not a 0.9. Jesus. So that's the difference there. Now the other one I've got, I took a picture of my. Is that it there? No, that's the other side of my little. Well, it's actually the same side. Where are we? 1, 2, 3. Have a look at this one. That's the other side of my 0.05, and if you notice it, it's got a line on it and a dirty big crack in it. That's why it probably burns up some eddy currents as well. But it is relatively smooth compared to the other one, and that's what makes the difference. That's nice and smooth, but that's very, very tiny, that one. I did take one of. I'm going to click on them all now because it's quite strange. They're out of sequence. No, the same one. Hang on, just click on them. See what we got. No, I took some of the my 0.1 and I can't see it. No, that's that one. That's that one. That's my small one, 0.05. That's the other side of it, and maybe it's that. I don't know. No, it's not. It's that again. I don't know what happened to my pictures. They disappeared. I did I selected 5 pictures, did an airdrop, and they've all disappeared. Ah, that's interesting. So I got yeah, don't know what's going on there. Yeah, look at the 3, 1. Oh, they're in order. Oh, I don't know. Strange. But my 0.1 is, yeah, roughly a little bit, maybe looks like a little bit smaller than the Motley Gold. That one, that's the Motley Gold there. That's probably, yeah, it's the same one I put up before. The trouble with little tiny thumbnails, you can't tell what it is. They're all gold color, and anyway, it's not there for some reason. But I did take a picture of it, and what I've done, I've remounted them as well. So yeah, look at that. That's my 0.05. It needed a good clean up and a re-go of hot melt glue on it. And over here, there's a 0.1. You can see it's smooth within reason. Or maybe that's I know what's going on. What I thought was my 0.05 is actually my 0.1. That's the trouble. It's also damn small. There it is. That is my 0.1. My 0.1 has that hole in the middle of it. It just looked like the because it had that little pointy bit on it. I thought it was the 0.05. No, that is the 0.1. So I only did one pic of that. That's why it's confusing. I did 2 pics of everything else. That's why it's 5 pictures. But yeah, if you look at that, that's relatively smooth, and that gives a screaming signal. And that one, come on, where are you? That one there, it's very hard to detect. So there is something to be aware of here. And I'm going to show you something else as well. I think I've got it all connected. We're going to try and detect this piece of gold, but to do that, first of all, I am going to have to pick this up, and I hope it doesn't go haywire and fall over or something terrible. But beware, I'm picking it up and I'm going over here and we're going up in the air. So I'll just use that one there. Where's the handle? There, it's on the other side of the camera. Okay, so we go up in the air and I've got my dual coil, which I can run the detector in mono mode, and it usually should get rid of all, probably that's as high as this goes. I'd have to go put the other legs up, but I'm not going to do that. Too much mucking around whilst doing this unedited and live. But what we'll do, I'll turn this detector on and I'll just turn it on some power, make sure that we are in mono because I'm using the counterphase coils. Okay, now I'm using the high definition front camera now, so that's that motley one that's hard to detect. So on here, let's have a listen. Hang on a sec. I'll turn the other microphone on and put it near the speaker. Otherwise, you may not be able to hear it. So we've got a little green light there. Okay. Hope it's not too loud and drowning everything out. Okay, we'll just make sure where this is set. Okay. I've cranked it flat out and I've got some electrical equipment on. I've got switch mode power supplies on. Hang on a sec. I think that's all up there. I just cranked the gain back a little bit. Now I've got electrical interference again. Can't do much about that. But if I was outside of the workshop, I don't even know what mode we're on. Oh, hang on a sec. We'll turn the gain right down. So on that thing there, it would be extremely difficult to hear that with a mono coil. This is a tiny coil. It's 5.5 inches, and the detector is in enhance, and it is having an extremely hard time picking up that. Right now, if we go to a smooth piece of gold, and for this one, I'll use my smooth 0.1. So it's basically the same size gold. One's motley and one's smooth. This is smooth. So we'll see what happens. It basically overloads the detector. You know. The gold's in there. It hasn't fallen out, but so when you think about it, if you want to look at the gold price in Australian dollars, that's worth $10, $10, or about $7 US. And if you had 50 of these and you can't detect them, well, just do the maths. You've walked over a few dollars worth of gold. So PI will not get all gold. It just won't do it. and I've tricked this detector up to get this. Now, to actually get this gold, to actually get it with a reasonable signal, there's only one way to do it. Actually, have a listen to the 0.05 too. That's a 0.05. It's half the size of that hard to detect one, which is that one. So there's no problem with a small mono picking up smooth gold. River gold, basically, or wash gold in old watercourses. You know, any sort of shallow paleo channel that's probably been uncovered, you'll get the smooth gold in that. But reef breaks and stuff, you know, that's fallen off a reef, you might be hard pushed. Anyway, what we'll do, I'll plug this coil arrangement. This would work basically the same as a 6-inch coil on a pulse induction detector. And even so, on that big piece of, well, 0.1, big piece, 0.1, it's very, very much borderline detectable. Out in the goldfield, it'll be easier to detect because we haven't got all the noise. And you can crank this detector flat stick out in the bush, not a problem, as long as it's not near interference. Otherwise, you just got to crank it back a bit. So I'll get the other coil. An elliptical mono would be just as poor on that. There would be no benefit at all. You may get a little tiny bit if you're detecting it around here. So you've got a close in part of the coil. So you can sort of look at it like maybe it's a 3 or 4 inch coil. If you could visualize that as a round circle there, but it's not. The energy's all going out here, so it's not going to energize it much, and you're going to have to be right on it to hear it. But this is a double D commander, very solid coil. The double D coils, when they get really small, don't behave the same way a big double D coil will behave. There's a lot of trade-offs between using a big double D to get small gold. It's still going to be pretty woeful, and even a small double D to get small gold, it's just a construction technique, and that's still pretty woeful. There's a lot of losses, but anyway, we'll use it. I'll plug it in, and I'll stick the detector onto cancel mode, or else we won't be able to hear ourselves think. So what we do now, we'll get our magic piece of hard to detect 0.1. And I'll do this from my other hand. You might not be able to see it properly. Just remember, a normal standard GPX 45 or even a 5000 will not be able to hear that in most modes, not at all. Doesn't hear it. This one here has been tricked. I've got the gain turned down. We'll see if we can whack the gain up a little bit. We'll just see. Okay, this is probably 8 out of 10. It's just going to start picking up too much interference. But to get an idea, out in the goldfield, you don't have all that noise. So you double D, because you got two coils, the receive and the transmit, they're much smaller again. And the reactive part of the double D is where the two windings intersect. They're very close to each other, and in most cases they overlap. And in that little area there, it's as sensitive as almighty, right? So when you go looking for small, hard to get gold, you can go to a double D, but a very small one, and you will get this type of gold. I'll try it in normal mode. So I've flicked it into normal timings, and we see if we can get it in normal timings, because that would allow us to get the deeper stuff as well. It's diminished. It is diminished. So, and we'll flick it into sensitive extra. Sensitive extra does use normal timings, but the receive window I think is a little bit narrower, so it is a bit more responsive to fast decay targets. So if you did want to go and use your PI to get the hard detect gold, I would clock the hell out of the detector, change the components to change the filter parameters, which I've done on this one, and also boost up the input stage receive sensitivity, which I've also done on this, as you can tell, right? But you know, if I got my 0.05 now, that's a tiny one, a little speck. See what I mean? It booms in. It's not a problem. And if I went on to 0.1, I've got stringy bits of hot melt glue hanging off because I just redid that. If I use that 0.1, my smooth 0.1, I mean, it'll just about blow the roof off. And remember, it's in cancel mode, and we're getting hammered by electrical interference. I'm still getting up way up here somewhere, so yeah, it just proves a point. I'll stick it back in enhance. That's a 0.05. Yeah, it's getting killed by the electrical noise, but 0.1. I'll just turn the gain down so it's nice and quiet. But you'd probably find you probably still pick it up because the electrical noise interference kills the receive signal on these. You want to get the noise out of the system. There you go. That's a 0.05, and the gain turned down. Ran about 10 decibels below standard. So it's running basically no front end gain. It's a negative number. Still picks up beautifully. And that's my 0.1. And the other one, I doubt it'll hear it. We can try. That's that motley, horrible 0.1 hard to detect. I can rub it on the coil. Like I say, you've got to match your detector for your conditions. Match your detector for the type of gold you are trying to get, and match your coil for the type of gold you are trying to get. And I will kill that because don't need that noise. So after all that, we can get these little tiny nuggets. Like I say, I showed in the other video, standard detector basically cannot get that. It just will not hear it at all. And that's what the guy sent his detector back to me, because he was saying that he could hardly detect it, and he thought it was such a big piece of gold that he thought there was a fault with the detector. There's no fault. It's pulse induction. And anyway, that's his detector on the bench there. And just so he can detect these, if he has got a coil like a double D, he can now crank it right up and ping all the little tiny bits of gold. You just don't realize there's so much very, very hard to detect gold out there. A lot of it's water worn, and it does give a better signal. And on this one here, this little nugget sitting up there, it just doesn't want to talk to us. But like I showed on the Gold Monster, which is a VLF type machine, it can be picked up fairly readily. But then again, the Gold Monster's not going to go deep on bigger stuff, which is out of its detection range. Also, VLFs struggle massively in mineralised soil. They don't punch down very deep at all. I remember the days I used to use the old Whites and the old Garretts, Bounty Hunters, all VLF TR machines. On something like, I'm not joking, even half an ounce piece of gold in Denali, we would be struggling to get down past 5 inches. Right? No joke. It just didn't pick it up. All those old detectors, they had extremely limited depth. And if you did go over something on the surface, it would have to be a fairly decent size anyway to be able to hear it. The more later produced modern VLFs are a hell of a lot better. But then it depends on what the detector's designed for. If it's a low frequency sort of detector, if you're running, say you got to look at the frequency the detectors work at. If you look at the VLFs that are out there, they range from about 6 kilohertz all the way up to 100 kilohertz or so. And I think the gold master I used to have, old White's tin box gold master, I think that was running around about 90 kilohertz. My God, that thing was sensitive to tiny gold, really sensitive. And I've had the old green boxes, the old Garrett's A2Bs and that, and I think they had different modes on them. For memory, I think it was 6.8 kilohertz or something. It's very, very low. Trying to get bigger gold at depth. Haha. Not now mineralised soils here in Victoria. It won't. But it tried, and then I think the other frequencies on the things, I think you could flick it into 12.4 kilohertz or something. And through the years, you look at the frequency of all these VLFs, and they've all gone up and up and up in frequency, trying to get to smaller and smaller gold. But then, the higher in frequency, you start getting that shielding effect from the mineralisation in the ground. It just doesn't penetrate. It's very hard to get a return signal, or even get the signal down there to start with. Where pulse induction, it's basically, even though it's clocking fast, you can look at the way pulse induction works. Very similar to it's not. It's like, it's not really. You're going to say, don't say stuff like that. But I'm just saying it's more like a strong magnet passing over something. It induces what that magnet has, and nothing really stops that magnetic field unless you stick some nickel alloy or mu metal or whatever in front of it to redirect the magnetic lines of field. But it's very much, the high frequency stuff. It's like trying to listen to an FM radio station in a coal mine. It don't work. Or even trying to listen to an AM radio station in a coal mine is probably more like it, and that still won't work. It's just the ground just eats away the signal. There's just nothing left. So that's a bit of an explanation on that. But anyway, that's a bit more, because someone wanted to see and have some pictures of this motley gold to what it was, but I've gone a little bit extra and shown how it's extremely hard to detect. Where my 0.05 gives 10 times the signal back, that's what that 0.1 does. That's amazing. It really is. That is so much more signal from a smooth piece of gold than a rough, motley piece of gold. So keep that in your notes. If you're working quartz reef, where the gold is jagged, and you got reef break where it's fallen out the gold reef and fallen down the hill, and you're trying to chase that sort of stuff, you really need a pulse induction detector at the bottom, probably for the smooth stuff, and a VLF up the top where the ground's shallow for the real sharp, gnarly, hard to pick up stuff. So in most cases, you really, should have two detectors. You can, like I say, we're trying to modify these PIs so they'll do what the VLF does and retain its pulse induction capabilities. But for very, very tiny gold, our limits is really in the coil design for pulse induction detectors. It's all big and meaty, and it's relatively high capacitance, and little tiny signals don't work very well, or don't give a signature in that environment very well, where the VLF machines, they run very, very fine wire in the coils, and everything's just a lot more sensitive anyway. It's just the way it works. Without going into too much detail. So, you could look at it like this. You could say, well, I'll have something like a gold monster, or a tricked up one of these GPXs with a small coil, and more than likely it should be a double D, and use that up where you find the shallow ground on top of a hill, and also coming down the sides you'll find a lot of floaters, and you really need a screaming detector to be able to pick them up. Most of the stuff, I'll tell you what, where people have got a lot of gold, they've walked over half of it and left it there. I'm not joking. I'm talking about the old technology machines. You just can't hear it. And rule of thumb, there's a lot more small gold out there than big gold. So, you could get onto a really good area for a lot of small gold, and you'd just be walking over it. And that's actually true. I did that in Creswick. This is in the time before I had what have I got the camera pointing there for? I should turn it around, shouldn't I? I should drop it down. Hang on a sec. I'll tell you some factual stories about walking over gold, and I'll take this down. And I've got no idea where I'm going to point this thing. I'm going to undo that. I'm going to undo that. There we go. It's going to flop around. I'll stick it. I'll point it over here, and I'll sit in that chair. There we go. Don't fall over. Yeah. Anyway, what happened is I used to have the older detectors. I had the SD2000. I didn't get a SD2100 at first. I got the 2200 next. I also had detectors like the FT16000, but I didn't like that detector very much. I personally just did not like it, and because Minelab don't sell them anymore, I don't think they really care what I say about it. But I didn't like it. I thought it was a pig of a detector. It just didn't go deep, and it wasn't sensitive. It just wasn't. And then they brought out the Eureka. Was it Eureka Ace? I think it had higher frequencies, and that was sensitive. But I'll say it as it is. I've used it, but I don't like it, so I'll say so. I've used a lot of funny detectors out there, and you know, some stories I won't go into because it's probably disrespectful. But out at Creswick, there was an area there. I think I've mentioned some of the areas there. I've gone over quite a bit. I've gone over. I had a SD 2200 at the time, and it was an area I'd already found some gold with or in, and gone in there with the detector, and I got a couple of bits, and they were fairly, chunky bits. I don't know, gram, 2 grams, something like that. It's a long time ago. And I went over the area, and I said, "There's nothing else there. There's nothing else there. Nah, we'll give up on that." And this is the time I got the white Gold Master. I think it had a number after. I can't remember. It's so long ago. It's one of probably 200 detectors that have gone through my hands that I've probably owned at one time. What was it? Goldmaster something or other. Anyway, it was a really high frequency machine. And I put on the small round coil, I think it was at the time. And I went back over the areas I'd been over with the 2200. I had the 2200 was using the 11-inch double D coil. And I thought, yeah, I've cleaned it out, but I'll go over it anyway. I'll just go over. And straight away, zip, 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 Yeah, righto. Okay. Mucking around the pipe clay, got something that felt pointy and spiky, and it had all clay in it, white clay. And as I rolled it around a little bit like that, what is this? It was like a ball, but it was spiky, and I couldn't see any colour. It was just white. So I threw it in a gold pan, and I may have told this story either to people online or offline. I don't know where. But I probably told a few people this over the years. And I had little trowel, and I get another one. Zip, zip, zip. I dig it up. Piece of quartz, white clay jammed in the quartz, right in the pan. Right, and I did this for about an hour, and in sort of an area 10 square feet sort of thing. I went through it and I picked up all these tiny targets and said, wow, it's either like, I knew it wasn't, I was sort of thinking maybe it's sort of like lead shot, but it was, when you rolled it hard in your finger, it stabbed your finger a little bit. It was like a miniature rolled up porcupine sort of thing. And it was just, you could just feel it. It wasn't smooth. So I collected a whole heap of these things, put it in a pan, and I didn't have any water. So I went back to the car, and I remember I had a bottle of lemonade in the car. So I used my lemonade to wash the pan, and on the second swill around the pan, the whole thing was absolutely around the bottom of the pan in the ring was just full of gold. And it was this round, irregular gold, and it was spiky. It looked like little porcupines. And it's come directly out of the reef because there's some quartz I got as well, and it had these spiky bits of gold embedded in the quartz. So with a normal detector, you can't detect that. It won't register. But at the end of collecting all that gold, I had half a coffee jar full of this gold, right? And at the time, they were doing a lot of souvenirs and things. There was a shop that used to get those statues of little miners about that big. I think they sell them at the Sovereign Hill thing, and they have pans and they have people digging. And what they used to do is put a dab of super glue on it and stick it in there and sell it to the tourists. Because it was real gold, probably not worth much, but they would use that to sell their souvenirs. And I had people clamouring over me to get that gold off me because it was perfect for what they wanted to do. It didn't cost them much because it had hardly any weight to it overall. Still, now it'd probably be, you know, I don't know, maybe $5, $8 a piece, but back then it wasn't. So yeah, the high frequency machine saved the day on all this reef break type gold. It just fallen out the reef. You could see a little leader had disintegrated in the pipe clay, and the gold was in that. So how much more gold was there? I don't know because Selkirk's come and dug it all up, made bricks out of it. I'm not joking. if you go to look on a map, Google Earth of Creswick, right, near the old Melbourne Road, and look in the bush a bit, and you'll see this massive big dig out. That's where the gold was. So I always thought this is just my opinion. It's probably no truth to it, but I think when Selkirk's was making the bricks and treating the clay, I think maybe there was some heavies going this way somewhere. Don't know, but there was a lot of gold in that clay. So either there's a lot of very valuable bricks out there, or it was a good side business for Selkirks because I know other sand quarries actually scrape the bottom, right, and treat it for gold. But anyway, I won't say too much about that, will I? Well, sorry, I already have. But it's yeah, it's obvious. People do that. People get a license to you know get road base and sands and stuff, and there's a little side operation going. Yeah, but I think everyone knows that anyway. I don't think it's new news, and if it is, well, bad luck. Uh, yeah. Anyway, that's a little story about tiny gold. There's another fellow too out at Inglewood, of all places. Inglewood is totally unexplored, and even to this day, it hasn't been explored properly because I know so many people go to Inglewood and always find gold. So it's not worked out. But I do know a fellow from years and years ago. I can't remember his name. I can picture his face. Can't remember his name. I'm going back 95 or so. That he actually would park his car somewhere and walk in the real long way or whatever because he found a reef. He explained it to me. It's just a reef coming out of the rock, very low down, and there was all gold beside the reef. And back then, we were using some antiquated old detectors back then. It was using PI of some sort, I think, if I remember rightly. Too long ago. Uh, too many, too many prospectors, too many detectors, too many stories. But the small gold. I'm thinking back now that if he was using any type of PI, he would have got a lot of the larger, easy to get targets, but he would have left all the small stuff behind. So somewhere in Inglewood, there's a reef coming out of a rock wall, and as far as I remember, it's about like that comes out and fades into the ground, and all the gold was around the side of it. So I would have taken the reef, but horses for courses. Anyway, that'll probably do us. I've got my point across, I hope, about the motley gold and the smooth gold, how you got to have one type of technology or modify the hell out of your technology to be able to get it, or use a different technology altogether to get it. So on that note, that's probably it. I've just had a couple of these things brought in, so I've got to do some modifications on these for people. These are coming out really well, by the way. But I know a lot of people, if they're under warranty, don't touch it, it's under warranty. Well, I can understand that, but when they're out of warranty, or some people don't give a toss, uh, yeah, we're just doing the upgrades on these. And I'll tell you what, I'd say that the extra gold being found, it's probably well worth it. I want to get a couple of my customers in to do an interview, actually. I don't know if they will. A lot of people are scared of putting their face on the internet. And I can understand that. A lot of prospectors are private people. But I've done a couple of these for one guy who's done direct comparisons. I wonder if I can get him to actually, um, you know, tell us about his experience using, one against the other, the modified one against the stock standard. Um, don't know. But if I think he watches this, if you want to volunteer, that would be good because I'd rather people see someone else say something about it rather than me all the time. It's just amazing. You know, People just don't admit that they're using modified detectors. They just don't tell anybody. I suppose I found that over the years that in the early days, people used to put flaps over their detectors so people couldn't see any extra switches or controls if they bumped into anyone out in the goldfield, which I used to think was amusing. But you see some strange stuff. So yeah, and there's another one here as well. So there we go. Got two of these things to do. Now, it's I couldn't work out what was rattling. It's just this thing on the armrest. But anyway, let's make sure. Never know. Anyway, that's probably enough waffle. Um, yeah, I've got to do these. I've got to get that back together. So, um, whatever your name is, I thought there was a name on that. Oh, here there was a name on it somewhere. Somewhere. Obviously, there's something else to that because I put everything in plastic tubs as a detector comes in. It'll have names. I put names on everything because you can easily muddle up boards and boxes. You don't want to do that. So everything gets marked. So if it belongs to Fred, everything will have and the last name like two letters on it somewhere. I'll just do that in Texter and or whiteboard marker because I can clean it off. Yeah, but anyway, that's the guy with that undetectable piece of gold. So yeah, I'm just saying that your detector will now detect those pieces of gold, but don't use a 12-inch mono on it or something. It's not going to work. You really need to use a double D coil. You may get away with a small mono, but it's not really the best. But your detector is now capable of detecting undetectable gold, being a PI. So that's good. Turn off the amplifier because I forget to do that sometimes. And yeah, I'm going to do what I'm going to do with these. I might as well put this on it for a little teaser for the next one. When I do these, whoopsies. Yeah. Anyway, whoever. Um, yeah, I'll do one and I'll leave one standard. We'll go and do a test side by side again because I've got new upgrades for these, and it is an absolute. Well, I've been told, and I would love someone to actually say it on the video, stick it up on YouTube, how well it works, rather than you're just getting it second hand off me all the time. But I want to, these guys are prospecting all the time, so if it didn't work, they wouldn't be using it for sure. But all good. Anyway, that's that. Now, catch us if I find the off button.